Humans are lifelong learners. From birth onwards, we learn and assimilate what we have just learned into what we already know. As early as 1956, educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom divided what and how we learned into three separate domains of learning. The three types of learning, the Bloom's taxonomy of 1956. The three domains of educational activities are the cognitive, which is referring to mental skills, the affective domain, referring to growth or in feeling on emotion, the psychomotor, which is referring to manual or physical skills. The cognitive domain has divided into six major categories, which is the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The first category is the knowledge, which is the recall of the data. Knowledge is the foundation of all learning. At this level, the students are required to recall facts, identifying with the subject that has been taught. The teacher would ask for students to explain or name the information they have learned in class. As long as the students can memorize, they would be able can meet the taxonomy knowledge. The second is the comprehension. The first one is will just encourage you to memorize even if you don't understand it. As long as you can recall the information, you would have the skill knowledge. But if you want your students to gain skills in understanding, then it should be the objective should under the comprehension. Comprehension refers to understanding. When you say understanding, the student can now give the examples, can explain, can discuss, they can describe. Those are the common verbs that use under comprehension. Why? Because a student will not able to give an example unless he or she understands the lesson. The next one is the application. What is application? If you know, once you know and then you understand, it means that the third step will be you will be able to use an application refers to using the knowledge that you know and you understand. The keywords here are apply, change, compute, construct, or demonstrate, discovers, manipulates, modifies, operates, predicts, prepares, produce, also relates, shows, and solve. You have to apply, you have to use a concept in a new situation or unprompted use of an abstraction. Also applies what was learned in the classroom into novel situation in the workplace. The next one is the analysis. This is separates materials or concepts into component parts so that its organizational structure may be understood or distinguishes between facts and inference. Analysis is the process now of breaking down the information into its small parts. Since it's a process of breaking down, it means that if you have big concept, you are going to break down the big concept into its small parts. Like for example, recognize logical fallacies into reasoning, gathers information from department and select the required task for training. Like for example, I would give the example of organism. You should break the organism into small parts like humans, and that humans you also find the different characteristics, like for example it is mobile. And the other example of organism is animals. Animals also its characteristics is mobile. That was the breaking down of the information into its small parts. And the keywords here are analyze, breakdown, compares, contrast, diagram, and so on and so forth. And the next one is synthesis. Synthesis is build a structure or pattern from diverse elements, put parts together to form a whole, with emphasis on creating a new meaning of structure. Synthesis, if analyzing is the breaking down the concept into its part, synthesizing means building up and make concept out of the synthesized idea. Like for the example given here is integrates training from several sources to solve a problem or revises and processes to improve the outcome. I would give a simple example. Like for example, you know how to cook a vegetable, and that vegetables are we should say that you will pick on that vegetable, you will pick the carrots, and you also know how to make a pineapple salad, and you also pick from that salad, you also pick the pineapple and the milk, and by that the ingredients that you have picked, the pineapple and the other one is the carrot, you should combine it and make it another recipe. That is how you synthesize the product, no? By yung gumawa ka ng ibang formula with your own. And the keywords that chooses there is the categorizes, combines, compiles, and composes, and so on and so forth. And the next one is the evaluation. It is make judgments about the value of ideas or the materials. At evaluation level, the teacher also expects that students will make judgment about what they have acknowledged based on their criteria. Like for the example here is select the most effective solution, defend a research, or critique a demonstration. And the keywords here are appraises, compares, conclude, contrast, criticize, critiques, defends, describe, and so on and so forth. Proceed to the second domain of educational activities, which is the affective domain. The first is receiving, the next is responding, and then valuing, and the fourth is organization, and the last is characterization by value set. In receiving, at this level, the learner will be expected to basically attend the learning session, being aware and being willing to listen or pay attention. Like for example, during a first class session, it is normal to introduce each one of the learner. He or she listen to and be aware of the names of newly introduced participants. So at this level, because you have chosen to attend the lecture, you will automatically at this level of receiving.
The next is responding. You're doing more than just attending, so your learners are actually responding to the knowledge at this level. The learner here will be willing to respond, react, and be satisfied to respond or motivated to respond. Like for example, participating in group discussion or gives a presentation. For instance, you decide on running group discussion and the participants at this level will be willing to take part in the group discussion, will have something to contribute to the discussion, or she gives a presentation. So, she or he will not just receiving information, but she will now be responding to it in her own manner. And the third is the valuing. This is where the advanced levels start from because at this level, the participant or the learners is not just receiving and responding to the information, but he or she will be attaching some level of value, which is extremely important if a particular topic makes its way to person's value system. Then the knowledge is definitely being imparted, and there's more to it, as we would say at this level the learner will showing willingness to perceive or strongly associated with the topic, also demonstrate commitment to certain values. So not just is the person actually receiving the information, but it's affecting the person's emotionally. So the person is willing to go out of his or her way and associate value to the topic and build upon it. They'll also build upon the topic because they associate value with it. They are willing to take it to the next level. And the keyword used here is are, propose, share, differentiate, also follow, join, demonstrate, and show. And the fourth category is the organization. So, at this level, the learner who has already valued the knowledge being imparted will prioritize the different values and possibly even resolve conflicts arising from them. And he or she will not just prioritize the values himself, they would also be emphasizing prioritization to other people. For example, at this level, the learner will prioritize different values, resolve conflicts, emphasize prioritization. Prioritize time effectively for family, work, and personal life is also other example. And the keyword used here are organize, alter, synthesize, defend, and also combined. That was for the organization. And the last categories of the affected domain is characterization by value set. At this level, the learner will completely internalize his or her values and behave in accordance. Be predictable in his behavior and in supporting the values. Let his or her value system control behavior. Like for example, the learner displays consistently through commitment towards the ethical practice in the value system. The learner has actually progressed to a level wherein he or she has internalized the concept and is actually letting it change his or her behavior. The learner will be actually absorb the knowledge to such an extent that it is typically of his behavior to be able to demonstrate that knowledge to other people. That was for characterization. How to remember it? First, in receiving, you should accept knowledge and then be responsive and value it. And in organizing, you have to organize it in your mind. And in characterization, let it become a part of you. That's how to memorize it. And the last domain, which is the third domain of educational activities, is the psychomotor. And there are 7 categories of this domain, which is the first is perception, the next is the set, then guided response mechanism, and then complex overt response, the adaptation, and the highest is the origination rather. The first is the perception, which is the ability to use sensory cues to guide motor activity. This is range from sensory stimulation through cue selection to translation. The keywords here are choose, describes, detects, differentiates, distinguish, identifies, isolates, relates, and also selects. An example, it is you have to detect the non-verbal communication cues or estimate where a ball will land after it is thrown and then moving to the correct location to catch the ball. Your perception, no, the perception of your mind. And the next one is the set, which is the readiness to act. It includes mental, physical, and emotional sets. These 3 sets are dispositions that predetermine a person's response to different situations, sometimes called mindset. Like for example, the students knows and acts upon a sequence of steps in a manufacturing process, or recognize one's abilities and limitations. Also shows desire to learn a new process or the motivation. And the third is the guided response. This is the early stages in learning a complex skill that includes imitation and trial and error. And adequacy of performance is achieved by practicing. The examples here are perform a mathematical equation as demonstrated, no, and also follow instruction to build a model. So this is the guided response. So unable to respond, so it is guided. And the next is the mechanism. This is the intermediate stage in learning a complex skill. Learned responses have become habitual and the movements can be performed with some confidence and proficiency. So this is now involved of proficiency. Like for example, I use a personal computer. So you use your personal computer because you are proficient, know how to use a computer. And also repair a leaking faucet because you are proficient on that. They're proficient ka sa ganyang gawain that involve a mechanism. And the keywords and mechanism are assembles, calibrates, constructs, dismantle, display, fasten, fix. Parang mas madali tandaan yung mechanism. And the next one is the complex overt response. This is the skillful performance of motor acts that involves complex movement patterns. And proficiency here is indicated by a quick, accurate, and highly coordinated performance requiring a minimum of energy. This category also includes performing without hesitation and automatic performance. Like for example, players are often utter sounds of satisfaction or expletives as soon as they hit a tennis ball or throw a football because they can tell by the feel of the act what the result will produce. Also, another example I can give is operates a computer quickly and accurately. The keywords used here are assembles, builds, calibrates, also constructs. There is also dismantle, displays, mends, and so on and so forth. And the next is adaptation. The next category is adaptation. This is the skills are well developed and the individual can modify movement patterns to fit special requirements. The examples here are when you respond effectively to unexpected experience, no? You are adapting because you can respond without you can respond unexpectedly. Also, it modifies instruction to meet the needs of the learners. And the keywords used here are adapts, alters, changes, rearrange, reorganize, revise, and varies. And I think this is the last part. This is the last categories. The origination. This is creating new movement patterns to fit a particular situation or specific problem. The learning outcomes here emphasizes creativity based upon highly developed skills. And the examples here is construct a theory. And the keywords are arrange, builds, combines, composes, construct, creates, designs, initiate, makes, and originate. So it is originate, no? And that's all. That's all the report about the 3 domain of educational activities. That's all. Thank you. That's all. Thank you and God bless.